We often hear talk of the possibility of a digital Pearl Harbor affecting our industry. Do you think that's the right analogy? Is that really the right description for the state of affairs of data security today?
Who do you want? I'll start.
Okay.
Actually, I think it's a bad analogy. First of all, we react from fear when we talk about extreme cases, and I think there's much less rational analysis if we look at, and I'll get this from the press all the time, what's the worst thing that can happen? I think, what's the bigger risk is what's likely to happen. And it's not going to be the extreme catastrophic thing. It's going to be cybercrime. It's going to be the boring thing. It's going to be identity theft. It's going to be buffer overflows. We're better as an industry if we don't stoke fear, if we don't talk about the digital Pearl Harbor, because people turn off from that. People are used to hearing about the fear of the day, and they hear about it and they're scared, and then something else happens the next day. I think we're better if we look at the more common risks, the more important risks, the risks that actually cost the money, and not the risks that you can say, well, that didn't happen last year, so maybe we're okay next year.
Whit, did you also want to?
Well, I think we're more likely to suffer what I'd call a digital 9/11 than a digital Pearl Harbor, because Pearl Harbor was an attack by a known, I won't say enemy exactly, but a known belligerent power with which we were in contention about various issues in the Far East at the time, oil in particular. Whereas the thing that was striking about 9/11 is, of course, it came, the nerve of something that wasn't a nation state to conduct an attack on the order of warfare. And I think nobody knows, whether the Loft, when it said to Congress 20-ish years ago, 15 anyway, that they could bring the Internet down in 20 minutes, I don't believe anybody knows, I don't know certainly, whether that was correct then and whether something like it is correct now. So I think we could suffer some very astounding event, and we've sort of had a few of them in other domains, in the sense of the blackouts of 1965, and there was another one in the 80s or 90s, right? And then there was the ones closest sort of our sorts of things. Sometime during the 80s, there was a big telephone failure that resulted from some update in ESS number 5, and some bug got widely propagated and then got triggered when rush hour arrived, and we had a very severe telephone outage. So I think the prospects for an unpleasant surprise are not to be poo-pooed.
Risk management is all about allocating resources, how much money you want to spend on preventing various types of low probability events. And I would say I would put the digital Pearl Harbor fairly low in my list. If you look, for example, at what's the likely outcome of such a digital Pearl Harbor, it's going to be a loss of monetary value, a loss of profits, inconvenience, etc. But if I compare it to other catastrophic events like Madoff losing $50 billion, I think it dwarfs the kind of losses we saw from cybersecurity incidents over the last few years. So if the government had extra money to spend, they should spend on regulating the financial markets and not spending on cybersecurity attacks.
Ron, did you want to?
Yeah, I wanted to say something. Several of the points here touch on the shape of the tail. Marty's been concerned about the major nuclear risks that we all face, and Bruce is saying, well, really, what we maybe should be focused on is sort of the smaller ones because they're more prevalent. And it's hard to estimate what the tail looks like. And if you look at earthquakes, for example, they have this nice law, the Gutenberg-Richter law, that says for every increase of 1 point in the Richter scale, the frequency goes down by a factor of about 10. And that's historically about right. But the power goes up by a factor of 30. So maybe if the damage is proportional to the power, you're actually, on an annualized basis, going to be suffering more from the very, very large earthquakes. But the ratio between 10 and 30 is what matters here, and so I don't know what it should be in cybersecurity.